This coffee person is not a morning person.
One take. Yeah. I just wanna see us all be free. I just wanna see us all be free. Yeah. I just wanna see us all be free. I just wanna see us all be free. Yeah. Be free. Yeah. Yeah. Wake up in the morning. The pain is almost over, yeah, yeah. Yo, I know we been hurting, but I know I've been whooping for a good day. Wake up in the morning, yeah. The pain is almost over, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know we been hurting. Everybody's hoping for a good day. The dream's not done. My hope's been here all along, all along. Been waiting to love, the dream's not done, yeah, yeah. Here all along, I've been waiting. I just wanna see us all be free. I just wanna see us all be free, yeah. Yeah, I just wanna see us all be free. I just wanna see us all be free, yeah, be free, yeah, yeah. No, I wrote the song in the middle of the night. Before the morning was coming, I was hurting and yawning, yearning, hoping for something better. This is for you on Margaret, and for everybody else that we lost. We gonna be free. Peace and power I desire. I got up higher by love. I admire my Messiah, cause he ride the dots I love. I keep writers in the light, cause they've been profiting off of. But I can't lie, I've been dying, so I speak life like a mug. Got the plug, yeah, want the love, yeah. They want me hating, they faking, they want me just like them, yeah. But I can't do that, no. I cling to my road. They told me to go. I can't do that. We to go, yeah. I got love down up in me, feel it in my throat, yeah, yeah. When you coming close, might feel it about the microphone. When I tell you now, oh, I'm finally home, yeah, yeah. Your love lifts me up. Your love is a house and a home to me. Your love lifts me up. Your love is a house and a home to me. Your love wakes me up. Your love is a house and a home to me. Your love wakes me up. Your love is a house and a home. I just wanna see us all.
The other day I saw a man, he told me to take a loan out. I said, what it look like? Nah, fam. Yo, we got the energy to generate a situation, save a nation, make a people wanna hit the slide. Make me wanna turn and have electric, pop your sucker side. I'ma have to let you know we ride. Anybody wanna take me off my square, gon' have to come and put some hands on your boy. Yeah, if you wanna see me come around with the dupper sound, you gon' see me with all of my boys. Yeah, we ride deep up in the clutch for real, and we bringing the type of energy that you gon' feel. I got the avatar stance plus the Goku hands. I wish you would come and take my plans. Nah, we got the energy generate, energy generate, energy generate, baby. We got the energy generate, energy generate, energy generate. Ain't no maybe. We got the energy generate, the energy, generate, the energy, generate, baby. We got the energy, generate, the energy, generate, energy, generate, baby. We got the energy generating, kinda like a percolator. Got me feeling Super Saiyan in the situation. You know what I'm saying? You know that I'm praying. You know that this Savior coming to save us all from the situations. They praying like, mantis, they want me to stand this. I cannot, I'd rather be with my clan. This is a situation where I might have to go Conan on them. You know that wanna get my woman off of this. Is the new tribalism. Anybody's welcome. With transfusion of the mission from Yeshua Vision. Special being canon to any on Steve Bannon. That's an otherworldly power to plow through they wicked planning. We bring the rich to the poor. I bring you good news or more. When you growing up with the store isn't the limit, of course. I grow it like my maker. I got the queen like Sheba. We making new Jamaica.
Hi there, and welcome to an adventure in farming and harvesting coffee by Q Coffee. Here we go. Seedlings are raised before getting planted on the farm. Take a look at these little babies. Next thing you know, they become beautiful coffee plants. They have beautiful green leaves, and usually they're white flowers, but Sabrine loves pink so much, so now they're pink. Let's take a look inside of a cherry. Let's start on the outside and work our way in. We have the skin, then the pulp or mucilage, the parchment, the silver skin, and then the seed. There are over 120 species of coffee. The two most popular are Arabica and Robusta. Let's take a look at some of the differences between Arabica and Robusta. Arabica's origins are from Ethiopia and South Sudan. It makes up about 70% of the coffee produced each year. It's grown at higher altitudes, and it's much sweeter and fruitier. Robusta, on the other hand, is born in West Africa, makes up about 30% of the coffee produced each year. It's grown at lower altitudes, and it has more of a earthy taste, and it's less complex. Now, let's dive a little deeper into Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is grown at 900 to 2,000 meters above sea level. The harsher weather conditions at higher altitudes cause the cherry to take longer to mature, causing more complex sugars to develop. That's how we get some of these super fruity Arabica coffees. Delicious. Robusta, on the other hand, is grown at about 0 to 900 meters above sea level. And at these lower altitudes, the weather is more pleasant, and the warmth causes the cherry to mature faster, with a more simple and less fruity complex taste. Some people like that. Now, let's move into processing. After harvesting, coffee is then processed. The way coffee is processed will determine the outcome of the cup. The three major processes are natural, honey/pulped, and washed. Wash it up. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Now, let's get into this natural. First, picked cherries are sorted by hand to separate and get rid of unripe green cherries. You don't want the green ones because they're just not ready yet. You gotta let things mature. You know, good things come about with age. Next, 2, ripe cherries are laid out to dry in the sunshine and manually raked through to allow even air circulation. 3, coffee is traditionally rested for 30 to 60 days to improve the way beans age before they are shipped. 4, beans are then hulled to remove the protective layer of parchment. 5, the green beans are then examined and graded for color and size. Those defective beans are rejected. And then 6, beans are bagged into sturdy jute bags of about 150 pounds and ready for exporting. Next thing you know, you got some coffee. Here's a little visual of what sorting the red from the green beans by hand will look like. Here's another little beautiful visual of the beans being laid out in the sunshine to dry. That's cute. Now, let's get into this pulped/ honey. First, the harvest is placed in a flotation tank where ripe cherries sink to the bottom and are removed, because that is what we want. And then those unripe berries, they float to the top. Then we get rid of those. 2, coffee is mechanically depulped to strip off all the skin and most of the fruity flesh mucilage. 3, the stripped fruit is laid out on patios or drying beds where they dry quickly, increasing that sweetness and body. 4, the coffee then rests for 30 to 60 days. Then 5, the beans are mechanically hulled. And 6, they're grated. And then 7, they ready for export and coming to you with that super fruitiness. Here's that flotation tank I was talking about. You got your unripe cherries that float to the top, and then those super fruity red ones waiting to come on out. Remember how I said coffee is mechanically depulped to strip off skin and most of the fruit flesh? Well, here's an illustration to show that. Now, let's get into these washed coffees. These are those super clean coffees that are just all about the flavor of the coffee bean itself. This is the coffee that hasn't been influenced by the sweetness that can come from being a honey process or a natural process coffee. Not to say these coffees aren't sweet though. These coffees are amazing, but they're just different. They're just really crispy, I guess you could say. So let's get into it. First, the harvest is placed in a flotation tank. Then it goes through the pulping process to get depulped. And then coffee is placed in a clean trough of water where any remaining flesh is removed from the bean through fermentation. And then 4, the coffee is washed to remove any remaining debris. Then 5, the coffee is laid out on patios or drying beds and turned regularly for a slow, even drying of the beans. 6, the coffee rests again for 30 to 60 days. And then 7, those beans are mechanically hulled. And 8, they're then graded, and then it is time for export all over again. Hey. Now, here's an illustration of any remaining flesh being removed through fermentation. There you have it. You let it soak, then it falls all off. It's like taking a good bath. And now we are ready for shipment. It is bagged up, coming to you, and next thing you know, they get shipped to a roaster who is awaiting to roast some delicious coffee beans for you. Y'all better get ready. Alright, y'all, that's the end. You had some beautiful illustrations by Sabrina Naima, some narration by Bianca Alon, and some music by Lily Ruth Bussey, and big ups to Nikki Tolsch, aka Not Caffeinated Enough, for making this happen. Thank you for inspiring us to make this video. We had a really good time, and we pray y'all just keep on doing what you do, keep on staying up, keep on passing blessings, keep on being blessings, and keep it cute or put it on mute, because there really ain't no other way. So keep it cute, y'all. Peace.
Processing methods, are there certain ones that you lean toward, like you only do natural or anything like that?
I love naturals,
Yeah,
but because naturals have more characteristics to it, but the wash is a little more what's the word I'm looking for? It's consistent. If you get batch after batch after batch, the wash is going to be more consistent than the natural.
Okay.
But you don't have, I don't know, the naturals are fun.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously. The SCA score, right? So I consider myself specialty coffee. So that's, anything over 85 grade. But also just like bean size, if there's any defects on the bean. So if there's any chipping, brown spots just from like insect or whatever. Those are really like the first things. And really the only things I tend to lean toward natural processes. And so if I can get a natural process that's green, and it's like sometimes natural processes, they smell like liquor. They smell like liquor when they're in the green form. It's just like, it's that'll be one that I would totally be like, okay, I need to at least sample roast this one. So but yeah, that's mostly it. And then it's kind of hard for me to at least to grade green before I roast it, but that's just me. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're big fans of naturals. We love natural processed coffees. They're just there's more nuance, and there's more there's just it's a different experience as opposed to kind of a straightforward washed coffee. And mostly because the way I drink coffee, I'm a filter coffee drinker. I can drink filter all day. I'll usually have an espresso in the morning. And even then it's like, I want something fruity, something juicy. I want something that tastes like Jolly Ranchers. That's my palate. That's my preference. I've also learned that that's not my community's palate. My community loves chocolate, loves caramel, loves a rich, bold flavor. So, when we purchase coffee, we kind of jokingly say we buy the basic shit and the fun shit, and we give each one of those the equal time, because the blends, the fun, the straightforward stuff, when we look at it on a spreadsheet, sells 75% of it. It's responsible for 75% of our sales. But when I look at these kind of fun, more expensive, more difficult to roast coffees, they don't actually perform as well on a spreadsheet, but there's still a market for those, and there's still an audience for those. And so for us, like it's kind of a duality of finding people that are excited about our vanilla latte because the coffee that we use in that blend actually pairs with vanilla and it's not clashing with it. And then people that drink filter coffee all day, they're like, yo, this cup is always juicy. So it's like, yeah, like there's it's like a bar. There's folks that like Bud Light, and there's folks that are going to want an old fashioned or a margarita. Like, my job as a bartender is to be able to satisfy all three of those customers. And so for us as roasters, it's also our obligation to meet those. And so there's many parameters. There's the price point. Where's this coffee going to end up? It's like, I'm not going to put a $7 a pound coffee in your vanilla latte. It's not going to, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to be feasible for you. It's not going to be feasible for me. It's not going to be a good palate experience for you. I'm going to use something that's probably like $250. It's a straightforward Colombian that we're going to do a medium roast, and you're going to like, yes, this is yummy. And it's like, cool. I'm going to see you tomorrow. I'm going to see you the day after that. And so it really just kind of comes down to that, like, not being so kind of in our blinders that like we want to force, like these beautiful, elegant coffees onto everybody. But also being skilled enough that we can nail like the basic stuff, like, and have fun with it, and really like pay our bills with it. But then at the same time, like give these elegant coffees almost like competition type attention without necessarily going to competition. So for us, it's just more like we get a kick out of like our fellow nerds, like loving what we're doing with these special coffees, and being able to source these coffees that, typically are found by European roasters or stuff like that. So that's kind of where like that's kind of what we look for, that balance.
So the levels that people tend to be most familiar with are a light roast, a medium roast, and a dark, and then ultimately a Vienna roast, which is super dark and shiny, right? So the lighter roast is typically when you drop the beans at the first crack, so they don't get to develop as much. They don't get to that development stage, and that particular style of roast is gaining in popularity, but some people have a problem. They're not really satisfied with the taste that they get, because the taste is more so a sour taste, and it's somewhat grassy and it's not developed. That medium roast is a sweet spot for a lot of roasters, because you're able to bring out the characteristics of the beans. You're able to go after first crack, but before second crack. So you're allowing that development to happen where you want it, so that roaster can determine what they're bringing out in that bean. The darker roast is when you get to that second crack, and that's where you are. You may see some smoky, more chocolatey notes in your bean there. And with that Vienna roast, you definitely get more smoky and more dark flavors with that.
Can you define experimental coffee?
I think experimental coffee for me is anything that we see outside of the traditional natural process or wash process. Depending on kind of like your experience with roasting coffee at different processes, there was kind of like a time where people strayed away from naturals because they tend to be a little finicky, a little kind of particular when it comes to roasting. You're dealing with the amount of sugars in the seed that you wouldn't typically have if your process was washed. One of the amazing things that has happened over the last maybe decade is that competition has actually brought to light a lot of nuances in natural processed coffees. And I think that because of the availability of information, being able to have even kind of communications like this, I mean, you could Zoom meet with, anybody that you know in any of these farms. Farmers are now kind of understanding a little bit better of what the needs are in finer specialty coffees and how they're defined, or how to get really those scores in those high 80s or low 90s, outside of, like, let's say a geisha, which is like, a true geisha is really hard to find and even then harder to roast. And so now we're finding, and from personal experiences, being able to go to farms that are now specializing in what they call specialty processing. And we still call it experimental. I think that calling it specialty processing is probably a little bit more in line with specialty coffee, because it no longer becomes, are we experimenting to see if this is a hit or miss? But a lot of the farms are now dialed into a point where they have the science to be able to produce a very high quality honey washed, red honey washed, yellow honey washed. All these kind of just speak to degrees of the amount of natural processing that's going to end up in the seed once it's bagged and sent over to roasters. They've gotten the science down really, really good. In fact, SCA is currently working on developing the courses for farmers to be able to take specialty processing. I was privileged to be able to spend some time with one of the main instructors out of the 3 that are part of putting together this curriculum in Colombia. And it's really come down to it comes down to science, really, like the science of fermenting, the science of checking your pH balances to make sure that that basically the bacteria is doing its job, not too fast, not too slow, so that we can end up with the end result that we're looking for.
I hope I'm saying this right. I think it's called maturated coffee.
Okay.
Yeah. And those, I mean, wow. I got one from Ethiopia, and it was like, it kind of blew my mind. was a little more expensive, but I got to play with that. And see, what do I got now? I have a Chapas one that I kind of, because I was trying to stay away from certain coffees, but everybody kept telling me, oh, there's some good coffee up in Mexico. So I tried it out, and it was really good.
Okay. What made you try, what makes you try new coffees? Is it like usually by recommendation, or is there something that like catches your eye when you're browsing around?
For me, it's customers really, because a lot of times, like I'm in LA, so there's so many different types of neighborhoods, so you can go into a neighborhood and they might want some Ethiopian coffee because they're from Ethiopia, or they might that's how I started doing this Chapas from Mexico, because it was a ice cream shop that used to be in East LA, and they wanted to have what they wanted, Same thing with almost every coffee has been by request, When I had my own cafe, then I would kind of experiment, and then I would just sneak it in on my customers and be like, just look at them like, see if they liked it or complained or anything. But that when I had my cafe, I would play with stuff a little bit more.
A lot of it is going to define the amount of fruit that we're going to leave on the seed during the drying process. For example, it's very typical to find natural processed coffees from Africa because you have elevation, but you also have very dry weather. So you're able to control the elements to a point that your seed won't spoil, it won't rot. Ultimately, we're kind of still dealing with the factors of decay when putting something out to dry. Very much like when you convert a grape to a raisin. So what still is like being manipulated with and played with, and I kind of mentioned it previously, yellow honey, red honey, is that the amount of fruit that is still left on the seed. There's some coffees that taste best washed, others taste best natural. And then there's somewhere in the middle that there's still a lot of good coffees that typically end up working best with Central American coffees and the northern regions of South America. And mostly because now we're dealing with countries that deal with a lot of humidity, very tropical countries. And so there's a lot of tropical flavors, but the elements, the humidity of the landscape doesn't really allow it for the natural process to happen as organic as we can say, or as effortless as it does in Africa. And so that's where science comes in, and so I think that the experimental processes were happening about 20 years ago. And now we're definitely into specialty processes where the containment of humidity and lowering the bacteria decay so that once it's ready to actually go to the dry mills, it's the product is where they want it to be. That's kind of where we're getting at right now. It kind of like baking, when you have like, let's say a soft chew cookie, and then you have like an extra crispy cookie. Both of them are really good cookies, just depends on preference. And then there's somewhere in the middle. And I think that that's kind of where we're at as far as the experiment of how natural or how washed a coffee is going to end up. Being a washed coffee, that extra crispy kind of cookie, and then the natural process being that super chewy kind of like just kind of gooey kind of cookie. And so there's a happy medium, and there's spectrums. And I think that's kind of where the farms are really learning to understand what works best for the varietals, their elevation, and ultimately the humidity of the drying beds.
Mug Drugs has sold over 30 million records in 2021 alone. Check out the new songs from Fire Sham, Red Velvet. And a new song from Price the Kang, King Cake. And their duet, OGs. All three in store now.
So you're about to walk me through how you profile a coffee.
Right now, I'm just heating. I'm preheating the roaster.
Okay.
After about 12, 13 minutes with any particular coffee, I think, you start to lose the integrity of it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So those characteristics that you taste from the origin, like that's an Ethiopian, that's something from Kenya, you can't really tell no more. And you'll see it drop into the sight glass. So the temperature is dropping right now, and I'm waiting for it to go to that turning point where it starts to go back up. So it's turning now up to 90, and I'm about a minute and 30 in. So usually I'll adjust my air. F2 means that's my fan speed. I'm going to go up to 3. You can look at it. You can see some chaff a little bit. I try not to touch my trier, like take it out until after about 3 minutes and 30 seconds to 5 minutes. And then I start looking at the coffee and start smelling it. Even though you can kind of smell it right now, it starts to smell like sugar cookies. This is a natural. So there's a lot of sugar content on this coffee. You just profile it. Well, for me, I just profile a coffee according to that region's characteristics, like bean density. If it's like a dense, really heavy bean, I hit it with a certain amount of heat or not, according to that. And I kind of go through my experiences with other Honduran coffee, and then I kind of gauge it from there. But right now, I'm not trying to perfect anything. When you're profiling, you're just trying to roast the coffee to a certain point where you feel like you might get the best out of it. And then you can taste your quote unquote mistakes. You know what I'm saying? And you'll be like, oh, okay. So, if you taste it and it's a little bit too far, almost like baked, had that bake defect, you're like, okay, I need to back up off of the heat a little bit. I might need to hit it with a little bit more air. So the coffee is turning. It's like a bright yellow, bright green. And you can see a little bit more of that chaff just coming off of the coffee. And the variables, I don't touch those for a while. I'm going to change my air in a minute because what I want to do in the roaster, I want to create convection. Right now, I'm just kind of like roasting the outside of the bean, but I need the inside to look like the outside. I create that convection with airflow. I'm about 5 minutes and 5 seconds in, and now I'm going to start looking at it and smelling it. You can look at the coffee and tell, like, don't drop this yet. Start to kind of like get a sense of when you want to, adjust anything, or if you don't want to adjust anything at all, it's just fine. But eventually you're going to have to when you start going in the first crack. Like if I say I take this out and I start seeing a couple of wisps of smoke come out of the trier, I adjust my flow and the air, it gets sucked right back in. I'm going to increase it to about F5. I'm going to start listening too. So it's starting to go into the Maillard reaction, of browning, or just going into that, get to the point where it's going to go in the first crack soon. I'm at 7 minutes. It's going to move pretty fast. After this point right here, it starts to move super fast. And
I see.
When you increase that airflow, you see that chaff starts to disappear. It's getting blown out of the drum into the chaff collector, along with the smoke being blown out of the drum as well. It smells like chocolate cake in here. Without the frosting. But it smells like chocolate cake. So you know it's gonna go in the first crack soon. I want to see if I got any pops. And some pops are outliers, which are like I don't tell. And some of them you can hear. And I'm gonna go max air because I want to clean this up. I want to take all smoke out of my drum, and I'm gonna slowly start to increase air. I've marked first crack already, so it's counting down. A little bit over at my time, about 9 minutes in. The roast completely in about 15 seconds into first crack. Now you start to take it out. Very frequent. Get that thing out. Look at it. See where you want it to be. This coffee, I don't let it go in the first crack too soon. Too long. Now I'm going to drop all heat because the heat that's in the drum is going to carry it. I'm going to let it go for about 45 seconds.
Okay, so what's the difference between doing what you did, turn the heat off, let it go for a while before dropping, and then just letting it stay at whatever heat it was at before dropping it?
Because if I let it stay at that same heat, then it's going to continue to get hotter and hotter and hotter. And then I'll send this coffee into second crack, or I could potentially scorch it, burn it, whatever. And I don't really want that. So when you go into exothermic or first crack, you just start taking that heat down.
Is there like an average number of times it takes for you to profile a coffee, like attempts at roasting?
I was about to cuss, yes. Yes, it is. Especially with this one, I probably profiled this coffee or did like sample roast or test roast, whatever you want to call it, probably like 6 or 7 times. And it was so frustrating because I was like, now I sample roasted this coffee when Mike sent it to me. And it was so good and I nailed it, but it was completely different when I got the full bag and was like, all right, what you gonna do now? So it was completely different. And plus I was not roasting 200 grams. You know what I'm saying? I was roasting a couple of pounds at a time. So I was doing production. And when you're doing production, everything all the stuff that you did in your sample roasting, not all of it, but as far as like weight goes and then how you're gonna apply heat, it changes. You know what I'm saying? Like 200 grams, that's light. So if you hit 200 grams with like, I don't know, 392 degrees, it's gonna turn really fast. But if you hit 3 pounds with 392 degrees, it'll take a little bit more time. Not too much more time, but it's gonna take more time for that coffee to absorb that heat and start to go through its chemical changes. And you just have to adjust accordingly. And that's why I keep these as well. This is my roasting, or one, I got a bunch of them, but this is my roasting log. And sometimes I scribble, as you can probably see in this one. Well, I didn't do that scribble. My daughter probably did that one. My daughter did that. But
if it was you, it's okay.
It probably was me. But my chicken scratch, you can see that. And it's not like super duper like high tech stuff. It's just the coffee's age, the roast method, the roast date, the starting weight, my preheat temperature, when did I experience first crack, the total roasting time, the final bean temperature, the ending weight, which I always seem to forget to put, because when I roast my coffee, I usually get it out of the cooling tray and it goes straight into a food grade bucket. And with this little machine, it's only a 1 kilo machine. So I'm doing about just at 3 pounds, and that's max on this machine. So sometimes I don't do like the max. I don't want to push it, but if I got like a deadline for somebody who wants to kind of like feature the coffee at a shop, cafe, something like that, and I don't want to keep them waiting, I'll just push it. I'll be like, F it, I'm just going to go max capacity and just push this coffee through until I get all of it done. And that's that.
Is there certain beans that you have like a sense of what roast level would be best with like beans from this origin or whatever, or do you just gotta try it and figure it out from there?
Yeah, well, going through the process, and you roast it over and over, you start seeing the sweet spots in it. And so a lot of times if people ask me my opinion, I'll give it to them, like Sidamo Ethiopian. If you go too far, you'll roast some of the berry out of it. It has a real rich berry smell to it. So you want to kind of go a little, medium light,
Mm-hmm.
So those are just, examples. Tanzanian bean, you want it to taste chocolatey. So you can go a little bit farther with that bean. You're trying to get that, So those are, to me, those are sweet spots. And I think most roasters, they can kind of see that, but but everybody wants to tell the roaster how they want it.
Right.
And I get that because I've been on the other side. I've been the barista. I've been the cafe guy, and I know as the person that owns the cafe or the barista, what your customers want. So I can say, hey, yeah, I want it this way, and this is the way I think it should be. But they'll tell you, well, shit, our customers don't like that. So to me, I think of a roaster as like a tailor. I can tell you how your suit is supposed to fit, or I can tell you how your dress is supposed to fit, but you know what you want. I do a lot of tasting, I like to go and just sample a lot of different things. And then I see something that I like, I tend to favor a lot of East African coffees, but I also do a Chapas, Mexico. I do all sorts of different stuff, but I don't know, it just grabs me, like each one of it depends on the day that you ask me. People ask me, well, what's your favorite coffee? I'm like, today is Tanzanian, tomorrow you ask me might be Ethiopian, so my process is it's not so scientific. It's just more random, what I like and what I taste, what my palate likes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also if I get requests, I get requests from different coffee houses, people that I may white label for. And so I'm going to give it to them the way they like it. The thing is you have to use your senses, So some people have theirs on, like a computer and a profile like that. But with me, I just use my senses and my time, the clock. This thing has like a little window, so you can kind of see them browning. You can see them browning. You also have a probe, so you pull it out, you can look, see if it's getting close to your profile, So if you have a lighter profile, first you'll start hearing it. So you got to use almost all your senses, so you're using your hearing, your smelling, time, everything. So there's a thing called first crack. And once you start hearing it like pop like popcorn, that means that it's actually drinkable now. Anything before that first crack is kind of like, it's like water, like it doesn't really have a lot of flavor to it. Mm. So then you get that first crack, and then you keep bringing it in, you bring it into, your mediums, your city roads, full city, and then your darks, depending on, the profile, what somebody wants, that I'll do what they want. But me, I prefer not to like over roast. Because when you over roast, you're like, it's like you don't know. To me, I feel like you're hiding something. You know what I mean? Like back in the days, you would go to Starbucks and everything just was so dark, you know, to the point where you're like, you don't know if this is an Ethiopian bean, you don't know if it's Colombian bean, you done roasted the bean out of it.
Got this green bean that you're like, there's a ton of potential. Roasting is a lot like character development. People like get to know somebody. Like there's so much, you know, potential there. So sample roasting is really where you kind of learn the bean. So you're just taking a smaller portion of that coffee and I roasted a ton of different ways. So I'll start off with different starting temperatures, and then I'll start off with different, how long I want to stretch out the different phases of the coffee. And then I'll also mess around with the time after first crack, which is where it's like this very prominent, you know, crack from the coffee bean, and a lot of the developments there. So I just basically do that a ton, and then I just taste the coffee and I say, okay, what do you want to be, coffee? You know, I never really approach a coffee and say this is going to be a dark roast because I want it to be a dark roast. It's like, no, or this is going to be a super fruity coffee because I want it to be that way. It's like the bean already has a ton of potential in it. And so it's just my job to, as a roaster, to take out the potential in it. So honestly, a ton of the work already happens before it gets to me, from the farmers to producers like that. They do, I honestly believe they do about 85% of the work. And so from the roaster to the barista to the home brewer, we have the other 15. Is that 15? Yeah. 15%, somewhere around there. 15% to say, okay, how can we make this the best possible product after all the hard work's in there? So, yeah, the bean goes in to the drum. That's a long intro. The bean goes into the drum. And there's this period where the bean is absorbing the heat from the drum, and also the heat is transferring from the beans. It's like conductive energy. So then there's a point in the roasting process where the color begins to change. You begin to smell bread and wafer and like wheat, and that's where a lot of the chemical reactions begin to happen. So that's the Maillard phase, or color change phase. And then so after that phase, it began to turn, you know, the brown color that we associate coffee with nowadays. So, or that we associate coffee with. And so at that point, the bean begins to swell and the moisture begins to come out through the bean. So much so to where like the moisture releases, and that's where you hear the crack. So first crack happens, and from first crack to the end of whenever you drop the beans into the cooling tray, that the bean is developing a lot of the flavor characteristics, a lot of the things that you tend to see on coffee tasting notes and whatnot. And so as a roaster, it's just really my determination to say, at what point do I believe this coffee tastes the best? And so, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who say you need to go by time. There's a lot of people who say you need to go by development percentages. I say, let the coffee talk to you. That's just me. So, yeah.
Yo, that's dope.
Yeah, I can go down that rabbit hole a ton, you know. It's just like life throws heat, and it's like you either, you know, persevere through that heat and become a better person, aka better being, or you get burnt, you know. So yeah.
I have what I would consider an oracular roasting style. So I listened to my ancestors. So, you know, I when I source green beans, I'm familiar with that region and what some of the tasting notes are that commonly come from there. And then I'll sample roast at least 4 different roasts and see what I like the taste of better. So my sweet spot is normally, I have not come across any green that I thought light roast was appropriate. And I typically am able to stay in the medium roast levels, where I'm able to pull out what I want in that bean. The darker roast, the dark in Vienna, I have not put a Vienna in my roster, but I have put a dark in my roster, because that specific bean was designed to be bourbon barrel aged. So I wanted that. I knew that I would take that one dark, because I knew it was going to be in the bourbon barrel. It's definitely an ancestral and an ancestral veneration. So my coffee roasting is a form of ancestral veneration for me, because coffee was discovered in Africa. I feel that and it's actually typically grown along the African diaspora. I feel like the ancestors are in the ground, and they make up the ground that nourishes the plants, and so the coffee plants, and so they have that messaging in there. So what does this bean want to be? What does this bean want to taste like? So my style is to tune into what messages they may be giving me during that particular roast or with that particular origin. That's, I definitely, along my journey of being a roaster, I've learned the technical aspects of roasting. I've learned the thermodynamics. I've learned all of the technical, but what makes me feel better is tuning into, that intuitive messaging from my ancestors. It is, what, I'm glad you said that, because it really, when I decided that that's the way that I literally thought back to my grandfather, who has transitioned to the ancestral realm. And I thought about how, for us, we have these barbecue grills and stuff, right? My grandfather would dig a hole in the ground, and that's how he would barbecue. And of course, his food was delicious, but, it kind of made me understand, we get wrapped up into the details of the roasters, the technology that's available, when honestly, we can look to our ancestors, we can look to how they did things, and, find our answers and our methods. So when I'm choosing a roast level, it's usually, I can't explain it really, but when I am cupping those 4 samples, I usually know when I feel that is right. That this is the message that this coffee wanted to, that the ancestors want this coffee to bring out. For example, for Juneteenth last year, I found out my African ancestry, and my ancestors are from Cameroon. And I was able to connect with some Cameroonian coffee farmers. And when I got the samples, I did my normal routine, but I remember thinking that I wanted to bring that brightness out. Now, that brightness is usually between light and medium, mostly just on the other side of that medium. And I felt like that juiciness and that brightness is what wanted to come out. And so that's what I selected. That's the profile that I selected. See, I think it even comes into brewing because the message doesn't stop with me as the roaster. You can only brew a cup as good as what I roasted, right? So it's all along that same chain. So the brewing, to me, is also a connection. What did they want you to, what message did they want for you? Did they want you to taste brightness? Did they want you to taste boldness? And so, yeah, I can, everything is so intentional if you want to connect it to that. And I think that entire journey, right? The entire journey of finding the coffee in Africa, our roots being in Africa, and the coffee being spread across the entire diaspora. I think that, it shows that it's a chain. It's an ever evolving chain. And we're part of that as coffee professionals.
Blending is a beast that I'm still trying to figure out. You have people who blend before you roast. You have people who blend after you roast. I tend to fall into the camp right now, I would say, the post-blend crew, but that may change. Blending is more so of, hey, we have this flavor profile that we're trying to hit. What beans complement one another to bring me to this ultimate goal? So, we have a few blends here that we do, and we're really trying to hit like this goal of tasting goal, I would say. So it's really not much to it other than you roast 2 individual beans the best that you can, and you bring them together at a 1-to-4 ratio or 2-to-3 ratio, and that's it. So I know blending is very taboo in specialty coffee, but
I don't see why.
I mean, I know it's just weird elitism. It's interesting because like you wouldn't go to an artist and be like, hey, you can only use orange. You wouldn't go to a chef and be like, hey, you can only use lemon pepper. Like, that's the only seasoning you can use. And I think the same thing with coffee is like, we have the potential, because like coffee is so diverse and there's so many nuances to it. Like, we have the potential to create some really dope coffees if we just get over ourselves. And I'm saying ourselves because I consider myself a part of the industry. And even with dark roast, like there's this knock on dark roast, but it's like, that's how I got into coffee. Most of my family, like that's what they drink, And so, I think that, I think blending is the future of coffee, especially coffee.
Hey, welcome to my home. Let's talk about coffee. Coffee is a seed of a tropical fruit, and it looks like a cherry, but it is not in the cherry family. The 2 species that we're going to focus on are Arabica and Robusta. My name is Bianca Alam Brunson.
I'm Sabrina Naima, and I'm the co-owner of
Cube Coffee. So the origins of Arabica is in South Sudan and Ethiopia, and the origins of Robusta is known to come from West Africa.
Arabica is grown at a higher altitude, making the seed take longer to mature. So it has more of a fruitier, sweeter taste, whereas Robusta has more of an earthy, less complex taste.
Of the 2 main species, Arabica is the one that's produced more. It makes up about 70% of the coffee that is harvested throughout the whole world.
Arabica in particular grows at an altitude of 900 to 2,000 meters above sea level.
After harvesting, the coffee goes through a process, and there are 3 processes that happen. And it doesn't happen for, one coffee doesn't go through all 3 processes. So you have your natural process, and then you have your honey/pulped process, and then you have a washed process. And essentially, this process will really dictate what's going to happen with the flavor of the coffee. And after it goes through these processes, then that coffee ends up getting dried. And then next thing you know, it's going to the mill. And the next thing you know, it's going to a bag, to the roaster, and then to your cup. This is what we call Sylvia! Fruity and smooth.
Deal. Done deal. Done deal. 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 Done. All right, so my name is Sham.
My name is Ari.
And we're Mug Drugs. So if you've never heard of Mug Drugs before, Mug Drugs is a small batch, black owned, obviously, coffee company. Why we picked the name Mug Drugs, where do you drink your coffee? What do you drink your coffee out of? A mug. So, drugs, caffeine is a drug. It is legally a drug. So, and it's in coffee. Mug Drugs. It just made sense. And it's a fun name. It will catch the attention of people like, Mug Drugs? What is that? Oh my God, they're talking about drugs. Like, yes, we are talking about drugs and we're selling you drugs. We're selling you coffee. So, I mean, it's perfect. So we're going to talk shortly about coffee blends and why we make our own coffee blend. We're very to the point people. So if you like long-winded things, you may be like, oh, that was way too short. Listen, we're straight to the point. Let's get to it. So our coffee blend that we make in-house is the OG. Okay, and why is it the OG? This is the original in-house coffee blend. And we came up with the blend ourselves. We want coffee to be approachable. Coffee is for everybody. Hashtag coffee is for everybody. Everybody. If you like your coffee sweet, if you like it black, no creamer, no sugar, the OG is for you. Okay, so we sat down and we thought about, you don't want to make something way too bitter where people have to drown out the coffee and lose the taste of the coffee. You don't want it too sweet where people like actually just tasting the coffee. So we went through numerous of trials to find the perfect blend of this medium roast coffee so that it's enjoyable by everybody. If you like your coffee black, you could drink it straight out once you brew it, however you brew. You could do over pour, you could do your French press, you could do the Keurig, you could do the coffee pot. It doesn't matter how you brew, it's gonna brew a really good cup of coffee. And you can just drink it as is. If you like a little sweet, you don't have to add too much sugar. Trust me on that. You do not have to add too much sugar to it or too much creamer. Unless you like diabetes coffee.
Unless you like diabetes.
Diabetes. Unless you like that really, really sweet coffee, then, have at it. It's for you. It's for everybody. If you get the coffee and you smell it, you will smell a hint of cinnamon. And that spice is used in there for that touch of sweetness, so you don't have to overpower your coffee with a lot of sugar and with a lot of creamer. We've been trying to be sugar conscious, cut back on our sugar intake ourselves. So it's a perfect thing for you. We wanted to make our own blend because it's unique to us. It's easy to go out and, of course, this is no shade to anybody. Unless you have a bunch of money and you can roast your own coffee and all of that, and you don't have to go out and try to find a quality seller, then, hats off to you. We don't got it like that. Not yet. But we wanted to make something in-house that was unique to Mug Drugs. You can't find this blend nowhere else but with us. You know what I'm saying? Buy it. I promise you'll like it. But we just wanted something really unique and to make a blend that is specific to us and how we like to drink our coffee and how we think is more approachable or the best approachable for any new coffee drinker or veteran coffee drinker. You've been drinking coffee for 20 years, 30 years, whatever. It's a good approachable blend, and we wanted that.
Our blends, to keep it to the point, our blends are for, like she said, every kind of coffee drinker. Nobody should ever walk into our coffee and say, this is too much or this is too little. Coffee is for everybody. We don't cater to the elitists. We don't cater to the gatekeepers. We cater to the average person walking into a store and says, I don't know what any of this means. I'm just gonna pick something up. You want that person to be able to approach your coffee and understand from the descriptions, from the profile, that this is something I'm going to enjoy. Whether it's a little cinnamon, whether it's a little cayenne, if you want something like that. Making blends is all about what your palate dictates to you is good. Some people add a little bit of sugar into the beans, and because when you add spices to beans, they take on that flavor over time. These are things that you can try at home because we're not gatekeeping any of this secret knowledge. Take a can of beans or whatever roast that you like and try the following. About a quarter teaspoon of like cayenne pepper and maybe a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon, and you're gonna get something that's gonna be very similar to a Chilean spiced coffee. It's as simple as that, and too much or too little can ruin it. So get ready to have a lot of fun making your own blends. I promise, it's that easy.
That's a great question. I think the thing that I am currently just wrestling through is not apologizing for me being me. And I say that in the sense of like, coffee is better because there's different individuals. And so, I don't know. It's a very vague answer. But I think that it's okay to be me. It's okay to, so when I talk about coffee, like I'm like, man, like that reminds me of, so for instance, I had a coffee that was like, honey and mangoes. And I was like describing it to somebody. And I was like, it's like, you went outside and you chopped down a tree and it's like, get this mango and it's just juicy running. Like, so the way that I describe coffee, sometimes, especially on the cupping table with people who've been to coffee a ton, I tend to like shy back from describing the coffee the way that I see it in my mind. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think just, being okay with being myself. I'm still learning that. So yeah. And being okay with being a Black dude who's a roaster, and being my Black self as a roaster, not trying to be like X, Y, and Z. So maybe just don't compare myself to everyone. Like everyone's on their own lane. And I think that like, as you're running this race of coffee and, trying to make a career out of it, there's a tendency to look over and be like, dang, like they're, 10 yards down the road than I am. So being okay with where I am is, that'd be a huge thing I would tell myself when I started. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually like a twofold question, because what I wish I had known, I'm glad I didn't know. And that's how hard it was.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be, a fairly easy sort of transition and a thing to get going. And, it's passion that kept me at it. But, this was something that really, I had no idea what I was getting into when I started, on this journey. Absolutely no idea. And if somebody would have really sat me down and been honest with me and told me, how hard it was going to be, I think that I wouldn't have embarked on a journey. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, man, I wish I had a little bit more realistic picture of the journey. You know what I'm saying? So it's a two-part fold. Like, I wish I knew, but at the same time, I'm glad I didn't know, because I probably wouldn't have gotten this far.
Well, I've been doing a little bit of consulting, for new coffee shops, but I do a lot of question asking. Like, I ask them about the demographics. I ask them, but if it was me, I think I wouldn't change much. I think that the main thing I would change really is just the mistakes. Man, I mean, so many mistakes of just I'm not even just talking about roasting, just being in the coffee game, and more on business end stuff, But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm one of the type of people that just I get in there, I do it, and I really don't look back too much.
I feel that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel that, yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that and this is one thing that I was glad that you're bringing a lot of people together like this, is because I've been doing this for maybe 10, 12 years. And when I started, I didn't know anybody to talk to, So it's just trying to figure stuff out. And then when you figure stuff out with your wallet, boy, it's not fun. I'd rather go to a seminar, or I'd rather listen to YouTube or something like that, to figure stuff out.
Yeah. I just want to learn from someone who's I can relate to.
Well, that's how I felt when I went to the Roaster Guild. It was just me, There wasn't any other brothers up there or sisters up there. Oh no, I take that back. There was a couple guys from the motherland, from Ethiopia.
Okay.
But African Americans, there wasn't any. I just feel a little, I feel like a fish out of water, and yeah. I don't know if this is just me or what, but just getting information, getting the right information, having somebody to ask you what you're trying to do, and know they're not trying to sabotage you,
Well, if I had known a hidden little secret about health code loopholes, I would have started this business a lot sooner. Have you ever been driving around and have you seen like a little street vendor or cart on the corner selling any type of random food?
Yeah.
So somewhere along the way, someone said, well, if you can sell food or coffee or whatever the case may be on a cart on a corner, why can't I take that cart and just put it in a building and meet all of the health requirements? And that kind of turned the coffee world as well as the restaurant world on its head, because no one had ever thought of that before, because it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to open a brick and mortar establishment in a traditional way, because you have to have things like floor drains, grease traps, and the whole 9 yards as far as health department requirements go. So going back to that point, someone figured out if you put a cart inside of a building, just like you typically see in a hospital or something like that, like the coffee carts that you see in hospital lobbies, you can still have a coffee shop, but use the health zoning or the health inspection zoning for the cart as if it were on the street corner. So I didn't know that several years ago. And I was talking to someone about the idea of opening a coffee shop, but, basically not wanting to be beholden to a bank as far as getting a loan. So I was just saving and saving and saving. And suddenly this person's like, well, just put a cart inside of a building and boom, you're done. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I did a bunch of research and found out, oh, wait, I can have a legitimate coffee shop set up as if it's no different from any other coffee shop. But all I have to do is just do one simple thing, put everything on wheels. As long as everything's on wheels, I fit into that requirement. So once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I just literally went from needing hundreds of thousands of dollars to needing a lot less. So fast forward, almost, we've been working on getting Storymakers up and running now for about roughly 8 months. Now we're just waiting on that health department inspection to happen, and we're about to open. But we would have opened 2 years ago, probably maybe even 3 years ago, had I have known that.
Yeah.
So just finding those hidden little secrets.
Yeah, that's a nifty secret. I didn't know that.
It came from something by pure happenstance, because I'm not sure if you've seen Nigel's original setup for Drip NYC, Drip Coffee out of New York City. So if you check out Drip NYC, which I believe is also their Instagram handle, I saw him on Sprudge a couple of years back, and it was, if you're familiar with Sprudge's Build Out of the Summers article, they had an article where it's typically brick and mortar coffee shops, and they had Nigel, who's the owner of Drip, on, and they were showcasing his cart, which he actually had outside of, I believe, the New York Museum of Modern Art, if I recall correctly. He had his cart outside of there, just a single cart, and that was the Build Out of the Summer for Sprudge. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. So I started following Nigel on Instagram, and I saw him on an Instagram Live one day that he was doing with the coffee enthusiast. And he was talking about the place where he bought his cart from. So I was like, oh, let me check it out. And it's a company called Simple Display Carts. So it was just a rabbit hole after rabbit hole that I was just going down, and ended up buying one of these carts. And someone was like, oh, well, hey, you've already got the cart. Just put it inside of a building. Don't do the whole put it on the corner thing, or put it in someone's, clothing store, and you're going to co-brand your coffee company with the clothing store. Just get your own space, and you can have your own coffee shop as long as everything's on wheels. So it's just weird how like rabbit holes like that uncovered something that literally saved me thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So definitely wish I had known that a lot sooner.
Were there any major obstacles that you had to overcome in getting that started?
Yeah. I had a cafe, and I had a roaster, and he was pretty good, but I would always ask him to do different stuff. I wanted to have it a certain way, and he was like, man, you guys aren't ordering enough coffee for me to do any special stuff like that. So I just started kind of like just want to get into it. My background is I was a chef before this, so I've always kind of want to have my hands on the product. I always want to be able to, so roasting is like cooking. And so I started taking classes through the Roasters Guild, went to U.S. Roasters, stayed out there, and they kind of showed me a few little techniques and everything like that. But it really, to keep it real, is I just had to figure it out, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any roasters, Now, if I was about to become a barber, I would have had a gang of homies that was barbers, but I didn't know. So I burnt up a lot of coffee.
We launched in March, and it's World Views Coffee. And I started roasting about a year ago, and friends and fam were asking me to taste the coffee I was roasting. I had people in my neighborhood that would smell it when they were walking by and be like, hey, can we get some? Can we buy some from you? And I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know the rules. I was just doing this for fun. Mm-hmm. And I was actually getting coffee from importers from different places or whatever. And I was talking to the importers, and they were just like, if you're scared of the FDA stuff, or if we can help you, So we kind of struck a deal to where they were like, if you want to outsource the roasting, we can help you with that. And I was like, oh, sounds like a business idea. The hustler in me was like, oh, I'll think about that. And then we kind of went from there. And yeah. So, okay. I don't know if everybody, especially Black people, we got, so our parents, at least my mom it was like mama's cup. It was like her special cup when I was a kid. It was like burnt orange, and I'm not trying to put her on blast, but it was a burnt orange cup, and sometimes it was like juice and water in the cup. So as a kid, young kid, I'm thinking when I go and drink mama's cup, it's gonna be juice or water. And she wasn't looking. And it might have been by some cigarettes, and it might have been, and I took a sip of this, what I found out was coffee, and it was like the worst thing I've ever tasted in my life. I was like, it was cold. It was bad. I tasted a little bit of cigarette. I was like, yo, if this is what coffee is, never. Fast forward to like college years, I had some online classes. It was like 2011. Was having a hard time staying awake. And I was like, man, I hate coffee, but I wish there was a way I could like spike it in one of the like drinks I do like. So I took some hot cocoa and I made some hot cocoa and I spiked it.
Okay.
With some coffee that my landlord was using, or that he had in a pot. And I just put a little bit in it and I started drinking, and I was just like, oh, this is what coffee tastes like. This is good, and I was feeling the effects, and I was just like, maybe it wasn't the coffee. Maybe it was just the way people make it that I don't like, and then from there I started experimenting, and it eventually got to roasting it just for flavor, just trying to taste different flavors and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's kind of the transition. It was very similar. That's actually what made me interested in it, because I would just be making coffee for family and friends and making cups and experimenting, because that's how I started out. And then I was like, okay, I was learning about different roasts and the amount of caffeine in each roast and stuff like that. And then I started drinking coffee black, and this is like in 2012 or something like that. And then I'm serving coffee to other people just for fun. I would be like, yo, let me come over your house and just make coffee for you. And they'd be like, great. And I would make coffee for them and shots of espresso for everybody. And I was like, yeah, but if I really, really, want to like get a better flavor, I need to figure out what this roasting thing is. So I start doing research on roasting for quite a while. And I was listening to this dude who was like teaching a workshop or whatever. And he was like, he kept saying importers. And I was like, importers, like from another country, and then I started thinking like, that sounds like drugs, that sounds like drug game a little bit. Because in the drug dealing culture, you there's concepts like the plug and the connect. Like you want to find the plug who can give you the product at the best price and stuff like that. And then you kind of get it wholesale, and you figure out the distribution to get the best bang for your buck. And I was like, I wonder if let me just Google it to see if there are any importers near me. And I saw importers in Virginia and different places like that. And I was just like, this is happening all around me. And I connected with them, and I ordered coffee from other countries to my home. And I bought a roaster and I just started roasting at home. But this whole time I'm thinking like, that didn't cost a lot, having it imported. And I started doing the math. I was like, let's see, a bag of coffee is like, 12 ounces to 16 ounces. And I'm doing the math, and I'm like, this bag of coffee costs this much. And I'm looking at the profit margins, and I'm like, this is like, it just reminded me of selling drugs, basically. And I was just like, I literally had to get a scale, and I literally, and I was talking to one of my best friends, and we were just thinking like, this is very similar to, the illegal market. So, and that also made it fun, and it made it also like something I'm passionate about, because there are plenty of us who come from gang culture or who come from street culture who have skills, but we don't feel like they're marketable, or we can't really offer them to the professional workforce. It's not like you could just put on your resume like, yeah, we was doing it in the streets, like, so when being entrepreneurial like this kind of gives us a way to apply our skills that we did gain from street culture and stuff like that. So it became exciting for me.
I was talking to some friends, right? And maybe I took the conversation a little too far, but I asked them, don't you think these conversations are kind of beneath us? And they were like, what? They were like, what do you mean? I'm not saying we can't have fun conversations or we can't be lighthearted, but I'm just used to a different type of conversation. And I can't pretend like I don't know people like my wife or Mr. Greg, Pastor Felton, people who have been serving vulnerable communities for over 10 years, some over 20 years. I can't just sit around and gossip or talk about people and stuff like that. I really don't want to waste my life. So I started a company to promote better conversations over a cup of coffee. Worldviews Coffee is about style. It's hip hop. It's about inspiration. But most of all, it's about having better conversations. My name is Jerron with Worldviews Coffee. This is how we talk.
Speaking of trying to start conversations, how important do you think community is going to be once your shop is fully open?
It's a humongous thing for us. And I can speak from experience on this one in a very odd way. So we took over the lease to the space back in August of 2020, and it was a hair salon before we turned it into our shop. So we have been here day in, day out, basically transforming this place from a hair salon to what it is now, which is basically our cafe. And people in the community, and we're in the Barrio Logan, or to be correct, the Barrio Logan neighborhood of San Diego, which is historically a Hispanic community. And people would see us around Barrio, working on the shop, literally blood, sweat, and tears every single day, swinging hammers, pulling up the floor, demolishing the front. And we would just have random conversations with people. And those conversations would take very interesting turns, because it was, oh, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you building here? Oh, it's going to be a cafe for our coffee roasting company. Oh, okay, cool. Are you guys the construction workers? And it's like, no, we own the place. And I'm referring, when I say we, it's myself and my partner, Nan. It's like, no, we own the place. And it's literally myself, her dad, my friends, her friends that are helping us build out this place. And they're like, wait, you're starting a coffee shop here and you guys are the ones that are doing the actual construction of building it out? It's like, yeah, we are, because not only are you going to see us here day in, day out as the people that are serving you coffee, but this is our business, this is our baby. And that was the very first thing that went into establishing our relationship with the community, because one of the most fearful things in Barrio Logan is people that are outsiders or viewed as outsiders coming into the neighborhood and gentrifying it and bringing in a bunch of money, but they're bringing in money in the form of throwing dollars at something. And you look at world relations or international relations, throwing dollars at something isn't always the right answer. And it's no different when you're trying to enrich a community and build a business. Throwing dollars isn't always the right answer. So I noticed that that was very big for this particular community, seeing us here actually doing the work. And us being here doing the work translated to about 6 or 7 months worth of work that we put in. And it was basically day in, day out, before and after our full-time jobs coming here. And we were done for about a good month or two before submitting our plans to the county for approval for the permit. And it was just that itching sensation of like, kid waiting for their gifts on Christmas. It's like, man, we've got this beautiful cafe. Like, is it going to work? So we made the decision to just do a one-day only soft opening. And we announced it 2 days before the date, which was Saturday. So we announced it on Thursday. The only place we announced it was in a single Instagram post and our Instagram stories. And I think at the time we had like maybe 370 followers or so, definitely under 400. By no means a huge following. Still to this day, we don't have a huge following. The day of our soft opening, which was scheduled for 9 a.m., a good friend of ours who was one of the people that helped us get off the ground with some of the coffee roasting stuff and just imparting some knowledge on me, he made a point to be the very first person in line. And we have a pop-up window, which I'm looking over right now, so I keep glancing out the window here. We have a pop-up window that opens out to our sidewalk, and you can order right there. So he's the very first person at the pop-up window, and he's ordering a shot of espresso, and I'm trying to dial in the espresso machine at the same time. It's maybe like 8:50 or so at this point, and he's just patiently waiting. And 9 o'clock hits. He looks to the left, and he tells Naz, my partner, hey, you've got a line. And I hear her joking, and I hear him say, hey, you've got a line. And I'm like, yeah, okay, a line. 2, 3 people maybe. And he's like, no, really, you've got a line. And she just goes, shut up, you're joking. And she peeks her head out the window and is like, oh my God. And that's all I hear is just hear, oh my God. So I walk over and I look out and I see that the line is literally wrapped around the block. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, we had a 1 hour and a half long line, and the tickets just kept popping out of the receipt printer. And it was just ticket after ticket after ticket. And literally at 9 o'clock in the morning, 1.5 hour long wait. And it was from 2 days of posting on Instagram, a single post, a single IG story. And the only thing that I can attribute that to was just us being here, showing up for our community, and them seeing us here, because it wasn't a big event that we announced for weeks prior to it happening. So that was proof to me that the community is here to support us, and a lot of it just purely came from people seeing us here on a day in, day out basis and asking, hey, what are you guys building? Or, hey, when are you going to be open? And just engaging word of mouth. Oh, we're opening soon, or we're opening next month, or we hope to be open next month, or, hey, we're not open yet, but we're going to have the soft opening. And people were just telling others, and all of a sudden, we, I think, served 160 or so drinks that day. So it's just crazy. We don't want to be seen as the business owners that just decided to move into this neighborhood, open a business, and then never be seen. It's like we want to be a part of this community, and not just the coffee community, but literally the neighborhood that we're in. The crazy thing about that too, and I'm speaking from the fact that we're in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. There's such a, not knowing which company you're referring to, but there's such an opportunity, because depending on where you source your coffees from, you can bring emotion into it and bring in that nostalgic factor of, hey, where are you from? And if it's someone from Mexico and you happen to have Mexican coffees on your menu. Oh, hey, we have this really great coffee from Oaxaca. We have this really great coffee from Chiapas. Oh my God, I love Chiapas. That's where I'm from. That's where my family's from. That's where my grandmother's from. Oh, then you really have to try it. Or the reverse, if they don't have Mexican coffees on their menu, then maybe they want to start sourcing Mexican coffees if the primary demographic of that Hispanic neighborhood is Mexican. Or being in Chicago, I would imagine it might be more Central American. So start looking at your Guatemalan coffees or your Peruvian coffees and try to cater to the needs of that community.
Yeah, I think word of mouth is our most powerful advertising, campaign, I guess, if that's what you call it right now. just it's like those receipts, when people post, their packages arriving, people post, making their coffee with the Bold and Gritty, especially on Instagram, it builds a buzz around, what we're doing. And as people, people say, oh, so-and-so's enjoying Bold and Gritty. Let me try some, you know what I mean? And so that's sort of been like the social media and sort of building our social media presence. But I think doing pop-ups and, in-person events and just being present in our community has been very important. And I think, staying true to our brand, we like to get into good trouble. And I think that a lot of relationships that we have built are directly related to us being true to our brand, being present in the city, free coffee to the folks, painting the mural for John Lewis, renaming parcel number 5, Daniel Pruitt Square in the middle of the night, partnering with New City Cafe in the city to retail our coffee and have it on drip, which is, one of the coffee shops that's like right in the city of Rochester that is focused on building the community from within. So it's not like, they're not taking the neighborhood and providing something that's inaccessible, right? Coffee's at a accessible price point. They're renovating the community around them with affordable housing at like lower than, market rates. There's this laundromat in the community that basically just went, out of business and has sat like that for the last 5 or 6 years. So New City bought the laundromat, and instead of turning it into something that the community doesn't need, it's in the process of restoring the laundromat to its original glory, so that the members of the community can go and, wash their clothes. And so, like us being a part of that and being present in the community makes a statement, right? So when people say like, see Bold and Gritty, they're like, okay, like Bold and Gritty, yeah, they make good coffee, they do like really good with the coffee, but man, they stay true to brand, and they're in the community, they're doing their thing, and they're about like, building our culture, raising awareness, telling stories, causing good trouble, and I think that for us, the biggest, like I said, the biggest thing is word of mouth, staying true to brand, right? So if you're not true to your brand, you can hang it up, right? You can say you do all these other things, but if at the end of the day, you don't represent that, then, that's not going to resonate with customers. It's not going to resonate with, our people. And we're about building up our culture, building up our people. So that's important to us. More important than any other aspect of marketing.
When the pandemic hit, it definitely allowed us to catapult here in LA as roasters and be able to just like, be one of those anomaly stories that like we grew so much more because of the pandemic. But it was, I think that ultimately, aside from the space feeling good vibes, people love the energy there. It's a very non-traditional coffee shop. It's very much, we call it, it's just a space for people. Like it's what you make of it. But, the staff's cool, there's always hip hop playing and the coffee's dope. And so it's like being able to understand that as roasters, that was our responsibility. It let us grow so much more during the pandemic, as opposed to if we would have tried to like go down this particular road as roasters and only want to do these elegant coffees. And then when people wanted to support, they would have probably bought a bag. It probably would have been outside their price point. They would have done it out of kindness and support and those things. But when they made it at home and they put their creamer in there and all that, it would not have been the actual experience that they were hoping for. Whereas we knew our blend would, and so, and I'm just grateful that we had the foresight to kind of understand that even though we're specialty coffee roasters, our consumers aren't all specialty coffee drinkers, and ultimately, if we're trying to make this as accessible to as many people as possible, then, you got to understand that there's going to be a fair amount of people that are going to be excited that your product tastes better than Starbucks. And it's not to shit on Starbucks. I would say that the beautiful thing about Starbucks is that you can get a white vanilla mocha, at LAX, taste it, and then land in Tokyo, order the same thing, taste it, and taste the same. And it's like we're creatures of habit. That consistency is remarkable, and that's really what people became so attached to that brand. It's minimal. It's very minimal. Like every minimal coffee shop with their minimal design owes credit to Starbucks. It was like it's that white cup with that little green logo. But that consistency is actually what people got excited over. And that's kind of sometimes even where we miss the mark as specialty coffee roasters, that we lack consistency. And oftentimes that consistency, especially in the smaller level, we're not talking about like Stumptowns and Hearts and stuff like that. Just like little guys, people cranking out, no more than 2,000 pounds a week. Is sometimes we just lack the resources, the communication even within professionals to kind of understand our coffee, not as a straightforward approach, but it's a seasonal ingredient that requires different methods, different styles, different approaches of temperature and air to be able to actually achieve a more consistent product. And that's, I think, where we struggle, and sadly, there's just too much gatekeeping. There's too much, everyone kind of gets stuck in their little island, I'm definitely guilty of that. But at the same time, it's more of like, if anybody wants to know, like, come hang, like, let's just drop knowledge, we don't want you to have to kind of deal with as much of the research process that we had to. It is rewarding. We're more than happy to share the information. The journey of the information won't be the same, but the information will. And what you do with that is ultimately what matters. And I mean, I would say I understand people wanting to kind of generate or build a hype, because it is exciting. I could tell you, like, year one, it was very frustrating, to know that we were actually doing something different and unique, but nobody really saw it or recognized it as such. But that also reminds me of that freshman that walks onto like the football field for the first time and like expects the respect of the senior quarterback. It's like, he just got here, man. Like it's just, you got to put in the time. And so we learned in the first year that we were actually alone on this. There is no coffee community. There is and there isn't. There is online. There is, at the expo, at Coffee Fest, at Coffee Festival, at the after parties. Yes, there is a community within the industry. But the real community is the people that go through your threshold, the people that walk into your door, the people that you serve every day. Ultimately, that is your real coffee community. And so we redirected our focus after year one to that, to contour and to just really focusing on us, And then now, as we walk into year four, and the company is just not what it started at all. I mean, it started at like 300 square feet, little coffee stop. Now it's like a full-on restaurant and roastery. It's grown like 10 times the size. We've taken buildings over next to us. We're about to take over another building a couple doors down. It's become a juggernaut. It's a little surreal sometimes. And I realized that, like, because we snapped out of it that first year and realized that like, man, screw the gram, screw all that stuff. Like, we need to focus, our story will tell itself. And now as we're doing what we're doing and focusing on us and really, at the heart of it, as the owner, it's always been my crew. Like, I love my community. I mean, I live a 4-minute walk from my shop, so my community is my neighborhood. This has been my neighborhood. I mean, I run into my locals at the bar, at the restaurants. I can't walk up and down these streets without running into somebody that I know, or at least a wave and things like that. And that's very integral for this type of business. You may not need it if you're running, a tax, company or if you're an upholsterer or whatever, but on something like this, a product that really is centered around community. It is important to be local, to be around, to know like the needs of the neighborhood. And I think that's really where we've like like killed it. And having a good product is even better, you know, because it's like people are just supporting you out of like empathy, you know, or it's like, oh, you know, Chuck, we like you, you know, you're a cool dude. But it's like, oh, dude, this fucking coffee's dope. Like, it's like, thank you. Like, I'm glad you're like, no, I really like it. Like, I know, I drink it too. Believe me, like, I roast to like for me to be happy, you know. So it's like I know you're gonna be happy because, you know, even like I didn't even start off in coffee. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I worked with a lot of major brands. I worked with a lot of people that you know had an amazing product and amazing branding. Other people that had amazing branding, terrible product, and then vice versa. So you know, when we set out to do what we did, you know, it's like we definitely wanted to make sure it was always community based. You know, we didn't even land on our official logo till like a year and a half ago. We just kind of just focused on just serving good coffee, open on time, you know, smile, you know, get to meet people where they're at, you know, and, you know, and then from there, it's been very holistic to see what it's turned into. You know, folks have like salaries now, like we have managers and chefs and roast masters and all that stuff. And I just get to kind of sit back and like a sound guy and just kind of watch the band do what they do. And like, all right, cool. This is the company now. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Word of mouth has given me like all of myself so far. How it happened is like when I was interested in starting the business, I just wasn't sure. And I was texting friends like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, but if I do it, I'm gonna need y'all to back me up. You know what I mean? Because I don't, you know, I'm used to selling music. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I'm used to selling drugs from my former life, but I'm not used to selling coffee. So I don't know how to do this legally, but I'm like using business models in my head that I learned from the streets, that we learned from the streets. And as soon as I posted a picture on my Facebook page, like, hey, we're doing photos for the coffee business, it just shot up. And everybody was texting like, oh, give me some coffee, da-da-da-da, and, you know, make sure you get me some. Where can I get some? And I wasn't planning to launch until a few months later. But when people started giving me that feedback, I launched immediately. And I was like, okay, I'm taking orders now. So I just started just telling people like, all right, I just opened the store up, and people started posting pictures on their own and tagging me in them. And then next thing you know, somebody else would be like, oh, that's a reminder for me to get some. So it really started selling itself. I started getting texts at midnight, like, hey, how can I get some coffee? I'm like, you know, you got to go to the website. It doesn't quite work like that. You know, I can't just, you know, jump up out of bed and get you a bag real quick. Like, it just, you know, but yeah, it was really all word of mouth. Like I haven't done any ads. I did the commercial, the trailer, which definitely got a lot of people's attention as well, because they were just excited about what I was doing. But it's definitely been mostly word of mouth among family and friends. I wanted to promote better conversations, and I wanted to promote sharing different perspectives, because I'm a ministry leader also, and I've noticed that conversations are becoming really like surface and really like some of them don't have a lot of depth, even though we're all like longing for connection. So I'm trying to promote like, hey, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to have good conversations, you know, but, you know, you don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I'm just not going to connect with anybody because we disagree. And that's kind of what Worldviews, the idea came about, where I was just like, what if I could promote better conversations with coffee, you know? And just encourage people like get a cup of coffee, get a, drink with somebody that I don't know, that you may agree or disagree with, and have a great conversation. You know what I mean? Like, even if the conversation doesn't go well, at least the coffee's good. You know what I mean? Like, y'all can be like, hey, this is great coffee, even though the conversation might have been awkward. But so anyway, that was kind of the idea behind the whole world views. It's like us sharing our different views of the world.
Well, yeah. No, I love talking about this stuff because it's just like, if we don't share it, then, it's very easy to look at successes and not know how people get there, and I don't take credit for the successes of good people. It's a group effort. Like, so it's called good people. It's a collaboration of people. But it's also because of their support and their love and their respect. It makes me want to be a better person. And in turn, when I give that to them, they want to be better. And so it just kind of really becomes this beautiful whirlpool of like love and respect and trust, and love and respect and trust. And that really, like, I think we all yearn for spaces like that, for environments like that. So, why not do that with our workspace? We're there so long, everyone there puts 40 plus hours. So it might as well be somewhere you want to be, than somewhere you dread going to.
Yes. All the way. Yes. All right. And that's all I got. Thanks.
All right, cool.
That was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, of course. Cheers. Till next time.
Yes, have a good Monday.
Thank you. You too.
It's funny because I've traveled for so many years. I went to Jamaica, Costa Rica, and I don't mean just to tour or have fun, but like we had friends there. And at the time I didn't drink coffee. And I remember them being like, I remember this dude named Fire. Some people might know him if they see this, but he would come to where we were staying with like a trash bag full of coffee. And they all would have like this coffee party. Like it would just be just Black people drinking all this coffee. And I didn't drink coffee at the time, but I remember thinking like, am I missing out? And now I'm thinking, gonna have some Jamaican coffee, just face to face, But anyway, same thing in Costa Rica. Like they were just like, yo, this is the best coffee you ever tasted. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't drink coffee, man. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. I don't drink coffee, man.
Is there any advice that you would give to another person of color that's making their start in the coffee industry?
So much. I think one big thing would be don't be afraid to be the only Black person. I know that's hard because like there's so much trauma that can happen there with people misunderstanding you and you being seen as suspicious. Like this is stuff that I think that like in order for the coffee industry to become diversified, like there's gonna have to be some brave individuals, some brave people of color who say, I'm stepping out and I'm gonna do this no matter if I'm the only Black person here or not. I think also like just being a learner, like make yourself marketable, like pick up everything you can, taste every kind of coffee you can, learn everything you can, so that when you are hired, you know you're not hired because like, they need a Black person, they need to fill their diversity void. But it's like, no, like I have something to offer. And so those would be two things I'd say.
So, I would say first and foremost there's an identity crisis, right? For me, this was a passion project that was born out of something else that I was interested in. And coffee sort of became the vehicle to kind of push my passion project forward. But I think that there's this like identity crisis in coffee about like, how do we represent ourselves, right? Do we represent ourselves as like just another coffee business? Do we represent ourselves as a Black coffee business? Do we, where do we like find ourselves in this space? And, where is the comfortability with just being like true to who you are as a Black individual in society and pushing that forward as part of your business? And I think that on some levels, you can get a lot of pushback, right? So like if you come out and, we came out as Bold and Gritty as this company that like pushes these black stories, these stories of black men and black male success. And there's going to be pushback from that, right? Not everybody is going to jump on that bandwagon and be about it. Some people are going to be, why can't you just be a regular coffee business, And so I think from that aspect, there's just like this internal turmoil, and like how you just identify yourself. So, you think about like code switching and like the actual, like a different sense of like, the professional sense. But when it comes to your business, right? Like, how does your business handle that, right? How do you create something that's appealing to the masses, that's financially profitable, but then that's also true to who you are, true to your culture, right? And doesn't feel awkward in that space. And then like the other thing is just like access to resources, access to capital, access to mentorship. And when, there's not really other people in the business that really look like you, who do you go out to and seek, for that help? And so I think that all of those things combined were really just, I think, difficult pieces to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And sorry, I mean, I could talk for days about that subject, and even on like more personal levels of like why we got started and sort of just the craziness that was happening in my life at the time that we got started, that adds like a whole another level of complexity and messiness to sort of being Black in coffee and what that means. And that centers around a lot of the racial injustice and police brutality. And, one of my main sort of motivators of sort of this passion project of telling these stories of Black men was that I found out that Daniel Prude, who died here in Rochester, was my cousin. And, so just like wrapping my head around what that meant for me, what that means for my family, and, how I move forward from like reality of that to do something positive for the world. That's beyond just me, just beyond just, my wife and my son, but like, all right, like how do I move forward from this point in my life, and how do I represent like our culture in the most positive way, and how do I sort of build a legacy for future generations? So, all of this is a part of who we are as a company, but it's also a part of our struggle, and it represents why we push so hard in this space.
Well, it's interesting because I think I can go many different routes with that, because coffee still to this day is a commoditized, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's colonized commodity in the sense that the majority of the people that profit from coffee are not people of color, but we're profiting on the backs of those of color. And you look at the typical coffee farmer, for instance, they are usually Black or brown. You would be very hard pressed to find a coffee farmer that's not Black or brown. The exception being some of the newer coffee growing regions, and me being here in San Diego, I'm familiar with what's going on in my own backyard, where I believe it's Jason Mraz, if I'm not mistaken, that's trying to do some coffee growing a little bit, about 30 minutes north of here. But that rabbit hole aside, for the most part, the majority of coffee outside of some of this experimental stuff, it's grown by Black or brown people. Whereas people that own coffee roasting companies or coffee companies of any variety tend not to be Black or brown. So there's always that stereotypical obstacle of just the entry into the market as a person of color who's attempting to own their own coffee company, be it a roaster retailer or a multi-roaster cafe. And that obstacle usually comes in the form of information, because we're typically not the face of ownership. So when it comes to trying to source information and trying to learn about the industry and do this, don't do this, we don't really have people like us to turn to get that information. And there tends to be a little tension, either it be perceived or real, of going to someone that's currently in that position that doesn't look like you and asking those questions. So I've found that coming from a beer brewing background here in San Diego, at least, the coffee community is somewhat it's very open when it comes to the specialty world. But, and it's a very big but, you have those that are kind of stuck in years past, both in terms of viewpoints and their approach to coffee, that see those of us that are in the specialty world as a threat to them. And I know you're quite a few miles away, but if you were familiar with the landscape here as far as where my cafe is based at, you would instantly know what I'm referring to. But I'm in a neighborhood that has, as it currently stands, 3 roasters. We'll be the 4th. Of the 4 of us, there's one that isn't exactly happy to see us in their backyard. And it's for 2 reasons. It goes back to that loophole that I mentioned where, hey, this roaster has been in this neighborhood for many years. And they basically have a very strong following, a very loyal following. But here we are, we're an upstart, and we come in with a lot less capital to get off the ground, and we're competing with them now. Or at least we will be competing with them once the health department approves our permit. We're competing with them now. But the bigger point of contention with that is the fact that not only are we competing with them, but we're taking a different approach to coffee where we're really putting the focus on the farmers and the quality of specialty coffee and showing people how to brew it properly at home and basically educating people with the tools to do that. And that's even more of a threat to them. And it's been voiced to me by their own employees, not just the owner of the company, that we're basically giving people the tools to go home and make their own coffee and make it as if it's cafe quality coffee. And that's going to disrupt their business, so they think. And that's the approach that we're taking on coffee. But because we not only look different, but because we're taking a different approach to coffee, we're seen as the competition when it really shouldn't be. It's just like, hey, I am hoping to build a bigger, more inclusive coffee community, and I want to educate people more about coffee. And it all stemmed from my experience when I first got into specialty coffee, because by pure luck, I had someone tell me, put me on the right direction. Hey, don't get pre-ground coffee. Grind your coffee when you're ready to use it. Took that one little tip to heart. So I went out and bought a grinder, and I would go into coffee shops. I would buy bags of coffee. And the thing that I always notice is a disconnect. And I'm just the type of person where I'm always trying to reverse engineer something. And I'm just going to grab a bag of coffee, and it's not my own, but it's Joe. I would buy this bag of coffee, and the person ringing me up would just be like, oh, hey, would you like me to grind it for you? And I'd say no. To me, that was the perfect time to start a conversation. Like, hey, well, what are you grinding it on at home? Or how are you brewing it at home? Because if I don't need you to grind the coffee, obviously I'm a little bit more prepared to make this coffee at home than the average person. And it was the perfect opportunity for a conversation, so I thought. And I noticed that every place that I would go to, no one would ever take it one step further and do that. So that was kind of my first moment of saying to myself, I wonder what it would be like to have a coffee shop where a conversation actually happened between the customer and the barista, or the customer and the salesperson when they're selling a bag of coffee. And that one simple answer is, oh, no, I don't need you to grind it for me. I've got a grinder at home. Because at the end of the day, if I take this bag of coffee home, I grind it, I prepare it, and it tastes like crap, as humans, I'm not going to blame myself. I'm going to blame Joe. And that was a big problem that I saw. And with that problem came the idea for creating conversations about coffee in a very casual way, but the intention behind that being to improve the home brewing experience. So that's one of the core components of Storymakers. And when I tell that to people, not just as a person of color, it's, well, who's to say that you're giving people the right information, or who's to say that they're going to come back to your cafe? Well, I really don't care. As long as I can improve the coffee that people are drinking at home, that's all I care about. And it's not to put other people out of business. anything, it's the opposite. It's to drive business to different coffee shops, because now that Nikki is able to brew better coffee at home, she feels more empowered to go get coffee from many different coffee shops or coffee roasters and make it at home. And that helps all of us win. And I know that's going down a different path than that question was originally set out to answer. But when you see someone like me, and I've never been a person to point out an obvious fact. It's like, hey, I was born this way. I can't change that. But that being said, when you have these lifelong coffee professionals who take a very rigid approach to coffee, and they see a person like me wanting to change the landscape of how coffee is enjoyed and how that value system works of selling a bag of coffee and educating a customer, regardless of what I'm planning to do, it's just because I look a certain way and come off a certain way, I'm viewed as an outsider. And that's been the biggest hurdle so far.
Definitely, I would say don't be discouraged, and don't feel like you have to do things the same way everyone else did. For example, when I first wanted to get into roasting, I sought out some roasters to help me and to allow me to be an apprentice under them. And they specifically told me they didn't want to train their competition. And so they wouldn't help me. And, so I went to Portugal and I began to, I went to the coffee roasters camp in Portugal, and they were very helpful there. And I found a lot of resources. I found I found someone that was willing to mentor me, but I did not get comfortable with this as a business, as a craft, until I began to listen to my ancestors and said, you know what? I can't follow everyone else's path. I can't be afraid to follow my own path. And so I do. And I feel like it's been successful for me. So I would just tell them to not be discouraged and to understand that everybody's path doesn't look the same. So their path is theirs. That could be, it can be intimidating. I've been to professional events, roasting events, where I was the only person of color. And I think no, I take that back. There was one other. But most of the events that I have attended, I have definitely been the only African-American woman. So to hear what people are tasting, I didn't taste it. So I'm thinking maybe there must definitely be something wrong with me. I must be wrong. And that's when I was like, no, I'm not. Everything is subjective when it comes to coffee, even preferences, like you were asking me about the roast levels, everything is subjective. So some people will not like the super dark roast. They'll consider it burnt. Whereas some people will consider the lighter roast sour. So everybody's palate is different. Everybody's preferences are different. And so, it's that feeling of inferiority. It's like, wait a minute, I'm in the minority here, so I must be wrong. Or I remember there was a triggering moment to when I decided to listen to my ancestors. A woman had said to me, because she asked, could she watch me roast? And she said that she had been on the streets. It was not Ethiopia. It was South America. But there was somebody roasting coffee on a pan over an open fire. And she said that coffee was so delicious. And I thought about it, and I have a PhD, but it's not in coffee, obviously. But so I thought about, all this education, all these certifications, all this equipment that I want to make sure I have, all these tools for tracking these thermometers, these data points. I thought about that. And I thought about the fact that she said that the best cup of coffee she ever had came off of a street where somebody was just roasting coffee on an open flame. And so it made me realize sometimes things are made to be harder than they really are. And so that's when I realized it's like, you know what? Why don't I look at the way my ancestors did things? Why don't I pay attention to this messaging? And yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely felt that way. So we got to be true to us, true to ourselves, whatever that may look like.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it kind of bothered me that nobody told me how to do it. Like nobody told me how to, like I had to, like, for example, when I was talking to the importers and I in my head saw a business model, I was thinking to myself like, okay, I have a name idea, but who do I talk to? And I had to do a lot of Googling to figure out I needed to talk to the state of Virginia. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know how to form an entity. And I'm not trying to diss business friends that I've talked to, but I've talked to a lot of business people since when I was doing music business for the past like 10 years. And just nobody was just really telling me like how to do this, and I had to kind of figure out on my own, how to talk to the state to see if your entity is taken, and then I thought like, okay, once I have an entity, like, is that it? And then I realized I needed more, and the bank really helped me a lot because I talked to the bank about what I wanted to do. And they were just like, well, here are like 5 things you need to open up a business bank account, And I was like, oh, 5 more steps that I just didn't know, I had to get approval with the city for zoning, and fill out the zoning application. And I had to, well, they told me I didn't really have to get a business license, but I did. And I had to get the DBA, doing business as, and I basically, in the tax identification number and stuff like that. But those are all things that I figured out along the way that I wish somebody just would have told me. Like I didn't know the business bank account might have a minimum fee that you need to keep in your account in order for you to have the account, and I mean, like, if you don't know, like, we were sitting there in the meeting and they were just like, yeah, $1,500. And I'm like, oh, okay, really? And they were like, well, we can do, this amount a month. And I'm like, okay, but I do wish somebody, those are things that I wish somebody would have told me coming in, because when you announce something, especially and you don't have your ducks in a row, it can be really disappointing and bad for the brand. So that would be one word of advice would be to like try to get as many ducks in a row as possible before you announce it, because coffee will definitely sell itself, and folks will want that coffee. And they want it immediately.
Like thinking about it, that's something I definitely wish I had something I wish I still had, just like people, and I guess I do now with this like online community, people willing to help you out. But yeah, when it's just like looking around me, it's like no one's trying to help me out. No people just saying like, oh, you can, oh, just do it. You can do it. I believe in you. And it just seems hell, because that's not help.
Or the advice would be really motivational, and you're just like, but I need the steps. Like they'll be just like, just like, asking these questions like, do you have a, how long is your business plan? And I'm like, what does that have to do with, you know what I mean? Like, it's good to have a business plan for sure. But I've heard some people say you can have a 5-page business plan. I've heard some people say it can be a 1-page business plan. You know what I mean? I've heard some people say they just have an outline. So, for somebody to be like, unless you get a business plan, then come talk to me. Like, that's not helpful. That's not. So.
So I just got one more question. What has got you feeling not caffeinated enough lately?
Not caffeinated enough. Well, I gotta drink a lot of coffee. You know what I mean? So I got it in the veins, man, in the veins. You cut me open, boy. It might get everybody caffeinated.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my love. You know, I got all 10 toes in it. You know, I'm not going nowhere. And I think that's just the mentality that we all gotta have. You know, we're not going nowhere, and we ain't taking shit from nobody. Like, and you know what's the crazy thing about it? Like, it took me a long time to just really think about this aspect of it. Is that all this coffee is coming from Africa, South America. It's coming from where people of color are at. So why aren't we in this? You know what I mean? This should be our industry. You know, we need a piece of that pie, you know, a piece of that cup or latte or whatever you want to say. You know what I mean? It don't make sense for us not to be in it. And be in it in a real way where we're actually you know, making decisions, making sure that we're hiring people. You know, that was my main thing when I had my cafe, is that I wanted to hire people of color, hire Black people, you know, because this is all a trade. You know what I mean? So if I can teach you how to use an espresso machine and become a bomb barista in LA, and you say, "Hey, Kip, I got a great opportunity out in Chi-Town. Can you come through? This gang of money." I'm on a plane. But that's what I learned. You know, that's the trade. You can take that trade anywhere.
Business. And also, well, business and keep in mind, I am knocking on 50. So a lot of the status of what's going on in our country right now does not make me feel not caffeinated enough, because I've learned how to cope with that myself. So I don't find that as stressful or requiring as much caffeine. I need whiskey for that, but the caffeine is the business, and like we discussed, having the courage to to be in your own lane, and to be okay with being in that own lane, and understanding, you know, when I'm looking around and I don't see anybody else here, am I making a mistake? So that requires me to have caffeine and alertness. Everything else, whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think just normalizing, like the normalization of people of color in coffee, like, and it not being like, we're gonna have this diversity summit. It's like, no, let's just have like a coffee summit, and like, let's just make it diverse, because like there's a bunch of dope coffee professionals. And I think also too, with that is like making coffee, because coffee is such a lucrative commodity, and I would even say essential good. Like, we just need to pay people. Like, seriously, like, you need to be, if this is going to be a career, like, you need to be able to buy a house, savings, like, you know, build generational wealth. That's not just, oh, I got to own my own business to do it. But it's like, no, I can go work for a coffee shop and like make a living.
So, you know, I would say I'm not caffeinated enough on Bold and Gritty, just like in general as a brand, our ability to, like, you know, raise awareness and build up our culture and just like shake up the industry and really just do something different, right? Like, you know, we are about like telling stories. We're about good trouble. We're about elevating the culture, raising, awareness around issues of mental health, all these sorts of things. So we just started in the fall, right? So we're still a startup, right? We've only been around a few months. So I'm not caffeinated up on Bold and Gritty, man. We haven't even reached the tip of the iceberg of where we're going with this. So yeah, I'm in grind mode, just like building the brand, staying true to brand, telling stories, doing our thing, just being present in the community.
I feel I was there about 7 months ago. 7 months ago was it like October? I was definitely just burned out with COVID, going through a separation. The business was doing really well, like financially, but then there's also it comes at a price, and for me, it became my health, my marriage, ultimately, my stress. And then I tend to, if I'm overworked and overstressed, that is my permission to overindulge. And so that means an extra chicken sandwich, maybe an extra round of whiskeys, and it got to a point where it was very easy to justify a lot of these habits in the thick of COVID, because everybody was just kind of jokingly I'm an alcoholic now, my COVID 15, then my COVID 20. And so it was really easy to to be lenient on myself, but it took some sessions in therapy to realize that what I was doing was being very passively self-destructive to myself. And so as I let kind of that season of separation allow me to just kind of simplify my life a little more. And it was good. My ex and I were actually good friends. I jokingly say it was a very non-hood breakup, we didn't yell at each other. Nobody stabbed anybody. We really hugged it out. And she said something beautiful. She's like, I care about you so much that I'd rather do this before I hate you. And I'm like, I feel the same. And so it's really allowed us to reconnect as friends. And so, where I was at 7 months ago and looking at my life now, I stopped drinking. I take better care of myself as far as my diet. I've been meeting with a boxing trainer for 3 months now. She's amazing. Still keep up on therapy every Monday. In fact, it's in 2 more hours. Therapy was looking back then and what it looks like now, it's very different even. It's allowed me to be more mindful of my feelings, kind of stop and process for a sec. And so what probably had me feeling like that is that I felt obligated, so to speak, to always be busy. And I still work hard. I still work 6 days a week. I still take Sundays off. I still will pop into the shop to get coffee on a Sunday. If something's, on fire, it's not like I'm going to ignore it. Of course, I'm going to deal with it. This is my baby. But my business no longer owns me. I've been a lot better at delegating. I've been a lot better at trusting other folks to do what they do. And I had to as it grew, because I can't have my hands on everything. It would be unfair. It would be unfair to myself. And so it was really kind of taking a step back and taking the mental health break that I needed. From there, understanding what things I was doing in my life that were actually hindering, hurting, things that I probably maybe deep down inside knew I shouldn't be doing anymore, but I kind of kept giving myself those okays. We're really good at that. And kind of just being a little bit better at being just by myself with myself has helped. And then my little dog, of course, he's definitely an emotional support. It's really cute to have him around. So, those things really had me to a point where 7 months ago, it was really hard to enjoy the benefits of the success because I was also feeling the pressure and the weight of everything. I feel much better now. I feel now, as things are still growing, I mean, things are still expanding, but no longer does it stress me out or wear me out. It's just like, okay, we're ready for this next step. We're ready for the next step. And being ready for those challenges, as opposed to like barely meeting them, feels very different. And I realize now it's because I've taken more time for my mental health than before, and it's something that I'm fairly new to. I've only been doing therapy like this for last couple of years. I wish I would have had this in my 20s, believe me. But you know, you find it when you find it, and I'm grateful that I have a good camp that takes care of me. You know, from my specialists to my doctors, my trainers, my staff, my partners in business. You know, I have a very solid community that loves me, that gets me. You know, I think that's the most important, people that get you. You know, and so that has helped me. Because of those kind of supports, it makes me want to be a better person for them. You know, when I ignore that, then I start I'll still do the output, but at the expense of usually my own health, my immediate relationships. Maybe I stress them out indirectly, things like that. And so being more mindful of those things has helped me not fall into those patterns again.
The lack of discourse is what has me feeling not caffeinated enough lately. And given the world that we live in currently, and totally not talking about COVID, but just the world that we live in the sense of all of the tension that's taking place on a day in, day out basis, the social aspect of life as we know it right now, especially as people of color, and the various segments of our country that are with so much infighting, be it politics, if you identify as a Republican or you identify as a liberal, or you're a person of color that identifies as Black or Hispanic, or you're a Caucasian person or an Asian person, and the hatred that's out there amongst these segments to where we can't even just stand in front of each other and engage in simple discourse to talk about our differences and come to a resolution, even if it's not an agreement, but just a simple, let's agree to not agree on what you believe in versus what I believe in. And I say that in the sense of, if your favorite color is blue and my favorite color is red, we don't have to kill each other. We don't have to have a level of hate that we walk away plotting each other's demise. Let's just act as civil members of society, as adults, as humans on this earth, and come to a resolution of, hey, this person likes blue, this person likes red, cool. Put them together, you get purple, I think. Even more beautiful color, but let's just enjoy life. But so many people are so focused on, or so nearsighted on what they care about and what they believe in, that they're not even bothering to realize why someone feels the way that they feel about whatever the case may be. And it's caused so much tension in the world lately, to the point of like, if the killer mosquitoes from the Pacific Northwest didn't take us out, COVID doesn't take us out, we're going to take each other out. It's just the lack of being able to engage and just simple conversation. And, you know, as being that I would imagine the primary audience for this, for Americans, you know, being that this country was founded on freedom of speech and, you know, freedom of thought, freedom of opinion, we seem to not be doing a very good job of exercising and entertaining those freedoms amongst ourselves as neighbors. So that's kind of what has me feeling a bit decaffeinated lately, and not caffeinated enough. And decaf is never the right answer. So I would love to get a little bit more caffeinated in the form of seeing people engage with one another, seeing people actually listen to other people's viewpoints, and even if they don't agree with them, at least just soak it in, marinate on those thoughts, and try to just realize, hey, this person is entitled to that opinion. Give them a thumbs up and walk away, even if you don't agree. there's no reason for hate, violence, or bigotry as a result of someone's opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, word. I feel that. Okay, I do got to hop into another meeting, but thank you again for doing this. I'm really excited to see and hear from just more people like yourself, and just have kind of like all in one space where I can just see everyone's faces and hear from them all in one place, because that's what I really been missing.
It definitely is long overdue, and I'm glad that you took the reins on this to make it happen, and I can't wait to see the end product.
Yeah. Hopefully it is the first of many, whether by myself or other folks. So yeah, fingers crossed. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Not caffeinated enough?
Mm-hmm.
Besides the children. That's a great question. It's funny, I took a few days off from drinking coffee because I was just trying to chill. And this was a tough week because there have been a lot of like police involved shootings in Virginia lately. And just seeing them all on the news just kind of like has been very like disheartening and also just discouraging sometimes. But and this might, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm just coping with coffee. I hope that's not where this is going. But sometimes like having a good cup of coffee like I did today, you know what I mean? I got my little coffee, you know, and talking to you and just like talking with other people who understand, you know, those vantage points and stuff like that. It kind of makes me think like, well, I need to do that more, you know? So I think, I don't know. I think seeing things like that and seeing problems around you in your community and stuff like that, it makes you want to get planful, and it makes you want to be helpful. And I don't know. And I tend to like to be more planful with a cup of coffee. So I don't know. I guess social issues have kind of prompted me to kind of like do something. I don't know.
At least everything for me these days has become way more difficult to process. Even the small things that wouldn't have, like, you know, would have gone over my head earlier. Yeah, now it's just everything just feels like a lot.
Yeah.